Hello and welcome to Rooted Recovery Stories, brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's Rooted alumni communities. My name is Patrick Custer and I'm your host. We're so glad you're here and hope you stick around after this brief message. We are live.
Love Facebook.
Who we're with a number of people.
The opportunity to share.
She's one of our own. It has been
They aren't like
parts to your story that I think that's awesome. You found healing. You found
until I got so bad.
Can't wait for her to share with us different aspects of your story and what. Awesome.
Right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Recovery Stories. Again, my name is Patrick Custer. Thanks for being here and hope you stick with us through the entire broadcast. Today, I'm so excited to introduce to y'all our special guest, Jason. I met Jason at our homecoming at the Ranch, Pennsylvania recently and heard his story and was so blown away by how impactful it was. I asked him if he'd be willing to share with us so that you all could hear nationwide and from, those of you who are stuck at home maybe right now or in other states, struggling, you've never had the opportunity to access recovery or treatment yourself. Maybe you'll stumble across this, and I hope that you're really able to pull something out of it. So with that, Jason, I want to thank you for being here and hand over the floor. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Patrick. I'm excited to be here today. I'm 45 years old. I am bipolar. I have PTSD and I have ADHD. I have had this. I actually have had these symptoms and had all of these things going on with me for the better part of my life. And it's been quite an interesting journey. I would say that it's been a challenge, to say the least. With all this being said, I would say that I guess there's a couple things I want to say. I can go down a couple roads with this. I guess I'll start with, I guess what I want to start with is my time at the ranch, and then I'll kind of go backwards and share my story. Actually, a little over a year ago, I got to celebrate my year anniversary last week of coming to the ranch, and that was probably one of the best things I ever did in my recovery. And actually, my recovery started, like I said, about a year ago, coming to the ranch. And it was a very moving experience. And coming to the ranch was one of those things where I got to experience some of the most earth-shattering things that I ever could have experienced. The ranch, they have what they call the hill. You come up the hill into a place of unknown, in a place that, for an outsider, you may never have experienced in your life. It's a place where, both people with substance abuse issues or someone with mental health would come. And I was obviously there for mental health. And when I came there, I was in a very, very dark place. I was suffering from some very, very, very bad depression issues. I had some other issues going on. I use the terminology of hitting a wall, where the decision was made between myself, my fiance, my therapist, and my psychiatrist that was the best thing for me to do. I never envisioned myself going to a residential treatment program. And, I had reached out to Promises, and the intake group was just phenomenal. And they said, hey, let's get you on board, and, you come on out. Anyway, so I came out and, I come up this hill and here's this just amazing person waiting for me at the nurse's station. And it's Mandy Graham, and she's just this amazing person. And, she
One
got
of
me
a kind,
comfortable.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mandy's just, she's just a big ball of energy, and she happens to be the alumni advisor. And, I still stay in touch with her till today and talk to her all the time. But I was terrified and I just had no idea what was going on. And my fiance was there with me, and she stayed with me for a little bit, and when we got me off to my new adventure. And the thing that resonated with me the most when I got there is, I have a professional career. And my fiance said to me, she said, Jason, while you're here, you have to do one thing and one thing only. You have to make this count. And I kind of was like, well, I don't know, I'm in a bad spot. I don't know what to do. And she said, make it count, because you do have a career and you may not be able to take this kind of time off again. So when I did go there, I made the most of it. And I really, really, really learned a lot. I really capitalized on the experience, and it was phenomenal. And I learned, I grew, I found spirituality. Uh, it was just amazing. But the interesting thing that happened to me there is basically I was taken apart at the ranch. And that's sort of like an analogy I use, because I was such a mess when I got there, a matter of speaking.
Sure.
That the staff and my therapist there really kind of had to take me apart and put me back together. And that's exactly what they did. And I came out of there a new person, and it was just phenomenal. But not only that, the camaraderie amongst the other clients was amazing. And that really just moved me to a point that there were people just of all walks of life there.
Mm-hmm.
And not only the folks there for mental health, but the folks there for other reasons, really just pulled together, and it was a great community. And I made friendships that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, and it really helped me, and I learned and grew, and that's just something that I can never get back. I can probably never have again, and I definitely appreciate that.
It's on that note, it reminds me of, there's a spot in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about those of us in recovery being like survivors of shipwreck from sea. It doesn't matter what happened in our life beforehand. All of a sudden, our bond and we have this connection that's so strong because of somewhat either the trauma we went together or the survival of that we went through together. And treatment, kind of what you're talking about, I think is so, because I experienced that myself, such a defining moment in a type of connection that many of us have never felt necessarily before the treatment process, no matter if it's from mental health or addiction specifically, or both. It's a beautiful thing, and it's nice to hear how you described it, for sure.
Oh, definitely. And it turned out I was the big brother to everybody, because I was one of the oldest guys there. It was kind of funny how I became big brother, and even almost like a father figure to some of the young guys. It was neat.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it was great, and the staff was great, and it was just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. But so to tell you to share my story, as I mentioned, I am bipolar, which is my biggest thing that I deal with. I describe bipolar as a very interesting thing, because I don't see bipolar as being a completely bad thing. because I've embraced it as something that has taught me a lot. It has taught me to be resilient. It's taught me to have a sense of gratitude. It's taught me to have an appreciation for life because, unfortunately, um, being bipolar is a challenge for life for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really a sad thing.
Yeah.
One thing I'm grateful for is that, I am relatively high functioning bipolar, and that, it's something uh, that I'm extremely grateful for.
Mm.
And but I work at it very, very hard on a daily basis. Even today, I mean, I wake up today and I have my challenges, but I have to work on it on a daily basis. You know, but I come from a long lineage of bipolar. On both sides of my family. And not just bipolar. There's other mental health conditions. You name it, my family on both sides have suffered, and I think myself, I'm probably the most affected. And as I look back on my life, um, I probably started suffering from a very young age, probably prepubescent. And I mean, it was even, I remember having mood swings, having, the highs and lows, fits of rage.
Can I
Um,
can I ask you a question right there? So
Please.
as a young person, what you mentioned to us your lineage on both sides, there were mental health issues and including bipolar. So what from that young age, what was your understanding of mental health issues and bipolar disorder? Was it healthy and treated? Was it disastrous? What was your experience and what was your knowledge at that point?
I had no knowledge. I had no knowledge because it was something that went untreated for me my entire life until my 30s.
Wow.
It was something that I think that there was a relative ignorance to amongst my family. I don't know that anybody recognized it, and I don't know that I'm not sure that anybody recognized the patterns in me. Particularly as I got later into my high school years, and I don't know that anybody recognized it. I certainly didn't know what was going on. Um, but I know that my mother suffered some pretty severe depressive symptoms. Later on in life, I met my biological father, and I understand that on that side of the family, there's some pretty severe bipolar issues. I really don't know if they were treated or not, but I think as a society, I don't know that people are as educated as they should be or
No.
treated as they should be.
Absolutely.
And
Especially when it comes to bipolar disorder. I think that's
absolutely,
my
absolutely.
observation.
I agree with you, Patrick, and that's something that I try to educate myself on.
Mhm.
I read articles in Psychology Today all the time. I try to educate myself as much as I can to try to understand, to if nothing else, to try to help educate those around me. Hey, this is what's going on with me.
Yeah.
This is why I behave this way. This is why I'm in a bad mood today. This is why I'm having this challenge. Because on any given day, I may bite someone's head off.
Hmm.
You know,
So the way you're describing it right now, interestingly enough, it sounds an awful lot like an average 13, 14, 15-year-old boy already. So given your, how you experienced it yourself and maybe feedback from other people, what are you able to separate when you talk about those early signs and how it's manifesting for you? What was a normal teenage Jason versus, how bipolar was operating in your life at that time?
I would say it was more seeing myself as having severe lows and then bouncing off the walls. So seeing more of the manic episodes and leading into the teenage years, having more of like hypersexuality. That was definitely a indicator for me in hindsight. In those years, I really didn't recognize it, but as I analyze it now, trying to look back and say, okay, how far back did this go?
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually was not diagnosed until I was in my 30s. Because of my lineage, because of my history, I actually, I went through a path of destruction through my entire, life up into my 30s. And I had to stop and say, okay, what in the world is going on with Jason?
Mm-hmm.
Before I actually stopped and saw a therapist, and that therapist within 10 minutes said, Jason, you're bipolar. And I had no idea what bipolar was. So as I've analyzed it over the last, multiple years, I really looked back at my life and said, geez, as I really look back, it went that far back. Whenever I analyze and say, geez, this is what my earlier years looked like. When I see what went on, and I see what I did, and I see what in my high school years, having grandiose ideas and abnormal behavior, erratic behavior, doing things I probably should have been in jail for, but I didn't get caught. Funny, not funny. And it all lends itself to those patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate because having been medicated, I probably would be in a much different position. But fortunately, I kind of pushed myself through it somehow. So I was very fortunate that way. So I made it through my teenage years. I went into the military. I got married when I was in the military against everybody's wishes, had this grandiose, in one of these euphoric states where nobody could tell me anything. I had these grandiose ideas. I lived in a hypomanic state through most of my life, where I was bouncing off the walls nonstop. I spoke very fast. I had erratic spending, hypersexuality, all of the symptoms of anybody with hypomania. And I love that feeling, and thankfully, I never had a substance abuse issue. I was very, very lucky that way because I'm sure, with your experience in the industry, in the industry that you work in, a lot of those times those things go hand in hand.
Absolutely. People,
and
especially by the time somebody comes into treatment for a mental health disorder, it's very often that, we're looking for anything and everything to help self-medicate our discomfort.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And I was very, very fortunate that those two things didn't go hand in hand for me. And but my and I hate to use this expression, but my drug of choice was hypomania. And I thrived off of it. And I got into my career, and I became a salesman. Everybody loves a fast talking salesman, and I was good at it. But anyway, so to kind of digress for a second, I got through my military years. I had gotten married. We had a couple kids, my two boys who I just adore. But once again, kind of having those grandiose ideas, being uncontrollable, being literally just out of control. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just throwing fits of rage. Rage was very bad for me in those times, But the interesting thing was I lived in hypomania. It wasn't so much going towards rock bottom, which was once again something that I was in hindsight, very grateful for.
So yours was a lot more of the staying high, lots of charisma, lots of charm, or did it veer more towards the anger end of the spectrum?
Mine was always hypomania and then anger. Those two things.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. But one of the traits also, as I've done my homework, is you sort of amongst and I keep mentioning grandiose ideas and things of that nature,
Mhm.
is amongst those things is somebody that has you have these personality traits that you have very high self-esteem, and you think that you think you're like way better than everybody else, and you think you're invincible, and that all lends itself to the hypomania, and that was me, and but once again, it just seemed normal for me
Was it
in that
was
time.
it easy for you? What was having relationships, friendships, no matter what you're talking about, family, friends? How did that affect your ability to have relationships?
It was terrible. It was terrible, and that's the thing. And I mentioned before slightly, a path of destruction. It literally left a path of destruction in people's lives, and that's what at the end of the day I'm least proud of when it came to the bipolar. So, I went through multiple relationships. At the end of the day, I ended up with 2 marriages, another long-term relationship, and I had 5 kids. One of them that I gave up parental rights to. Uh, all of my children are doing well now. Thankfully, I have a great career that I was able to provide for all of them, which I'm very grateful for. And all of my kids are doing very well, but I have a lot of shame in that, which I'm overcoming. Uh, but it's been very destructive. And and I kind of mentioned before, I after my second marriage, I said to myself, Jason, something's wrong. This has got to be you and not them, because for a long time I blamed everybody else.
Hmm.
It's not me. It's not me. It's somebody else, And I went to see a therapist, and I sat down with this therapist, and I kind of explained my situation. And I guess just from my behavior in that meeting, she pulled out a sheet of paper, and she started checking things off and asked me some questions. And she said, Jason, you're bipolar. And I was like, wow, I don't even really know what this is. And we talked about it. And, long story short, she recommended me to a psychiatrist to try some meds out. And I tried some meds out, and that didn't work. because the meds made me not me. They brought me off the hypomania, which worked for me. And naturally, I think one of those things that with somebody, as I've done some studying and as I understand from my patterns, people who generally are bipolar don't stay on meds. It just doesn't work. So I did that for a while. I tried the meds. I went off the meds. There was more destruction ahead of me. I did that for a little while. I went on and I said, you know what, this just isn't working again. Let me try again. So I went on some meds again, and I did that for a little while, and naturally took myself back off. Pardon me. And so I went. So I'm kind of back and forth for a little while with the meds, and I became sort of the poster boy for meds. I tried everything, every combo you can try. And nothing seemed to work. Nothing seemed to make me feel better.
So tell a little bit, because I'm thinking about from somebody's perspective who either might be a family member or another person struggling in your same shoes that hasn't been able to receive help yet. When you talk about not working, do you mean, could you explain a little bit more in depth what you mean by that? Was it not, was it curbing the mania, but you didn't feel well because of how it made you feel? Or what exactly, how would you describe it when you say it wasn't working?
You mean how the meds weren't working?
Yeah.
I think finding the right combination wasn't working for me, but also trying to make myself feel just right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was very difficult as I know now, one thing I can tell you is that trying to, and I guess what I would share as a level of advice, because I am in the right spot now, thankfully, and I'm grateful for, is it takes a long time to find that right combination.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time and a lot of perseverance. And I wasn't willing at that time to persevere, trying different meds and trying the right thing to make you feel good, and it takes some perseverance and patience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried different things. I tried lithium with this SSRI uptake inhibitor, which maybe was Zoloft or whatever it was, and they weren't the right thing, I had a doctor prescribe one thing to me that sent me to the hospital, but it's just something that you have to be willing to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
Because certain things aren't going to work right for certain people,
Mm-hmm.
because we all have different body chemistries. And it was tough. It was very tough. And at that time, I had kind of given up with the meds. And at that time, I was kind of sinking because I had lost the hypomania. And I had gotten to a point where I was kind of sinking into depressions at that point. And I didn't know what to do with that. And I was hitting some very, very lows. And I had no idea what to do with that, Patrick. I was, it was tough. It was very, very tough to be in lows. Excuse me, because I had no idea what a low felt like.
So was this you're 30 plus years old experiencing the lows of the lows of bipolar for the first time in your life?
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, starting to feel, manic depression.
Yeah.
Was paralyzing, and for me, I lived my whole life in hypomania, and to start feeling manic depression, you start to just like, wow, and all the side effects that come with that. I don't need to explain them, but I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sure anybody who suffers would simply know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's a challenge. So I went through a couple years of that, and something I'm extremely grateful for, and something I've learned is gratitude. But something I'm grateful for is I did meet somebody who changed my life, and I wanted to become a better person. But it's time. It's time for me to really persevere. And I went on a heavy regimen of medication, and I tried everything and anything, and I got put on a couple different things, and one combination did send me to the deck in Pittsburgh at Western Psych, which the deck is where they put some of the people with the biggest challenges with mental health, and that was terrifying,
Hmm.
but I knew that's where I had to go. And I got there, and they saw what I was on, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, stop this immediately!
Mm.
This is crazy. This is exactly what's wrong with you." So I had to stop that, and then 2 months later, I had to go into a inpatient because that particular doctor I was seeing didn't know what to do with my meds. So I had to do an inpatient for a week, and that was terrifying because I'd never been in the hospital for anything. I never stayed overnight in the hospital before.
Yeah.
So I did a week inpatient, and that was hard because for anybody that might have done an inpatient before, they really, really put me on some very heavy medication that once again had me very flat, and that was tough. That was very tough, and I finally found a doctor that had that I trusted and I believed in, and she started managing my meds for me. And we're talking about meds now because I think that that's a key component amongst some other things that you have to believe in whenever you are bipolar, because
Hmm.
your body chemistry is off when you suffer from being bipolar. And she really did wonderful things for me. I do take some of the most high-end meds on the market right now. I'm very, very fortunate to have good insurance, and but it doesn't that but that's not the only thing that works for you. So I am on a good combination, but you have to put in work around that.
Mm.
Uh, I do have a therapist that I see weekly, if not bi-weekly, if not weekly. She's on call for me, and I put in my work with her. And but I still hit lows, not so hot, not so much highs. The highs are gone, sadly. Sadly, the highs are gone. I don't even know what they look like anymore. And anyway, so without through the experience with the new doctor, I had hit some lows, and one of the lows happened to be pretty bad, and that was about a year ago. And that's where we decided I needed to do a residential treatment. And my therapist thought it was a really good idea because I lacked coping skills,
Mm.
and I lacked, without going into too much detail,
Hmm.
I had hit a very, very severe low point, and the things that come with that. And anyway, so that was my time at the ranch. And since the ranch, I've been in a pretty good spot. I've been in a really good spot, and I've been using my coping skills. Um, Not as much as I should. I think those surrounding me probably would like me to use them a little more, because I can tend to be a challenge at times. But yeah, I'm very grateful for everything that's surrounding me. But it's it's like I think like I prefaced everything with, you know, being bipolar is not a terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's good things about it too. You
Yeah,
know,
well, and it's brought. I think you know, again, with so many of the other behavioral health problems that we face or treat, you know, clients that you know our clients face. You know, the problem can be scary and cause all kinds of issues, but the solution it brings us to and the molding and shaping of our heart along the way can bring about some of the most beautiful end results. And I think that you're a great example of that. You know, one thing I was going to ask you is how would you define your life when we talk about, you know, you are, you know, pretty high functioning so to speak, you held a job and everything in your 20s. Yeah, but how would you define that piece of your life in a few words, and how would you define your life today?
um, it's interesting. When I was in my 20s, I was kind of hanging on by a thread. It was a real challenge back then. And I would say today I'm a completely different person. I don't know, Patrick. I mean, that's a tough question.
Okay.
And that's a tough question. I mean, I have I think I think finding some spirituality in my life has really changed me.
Mm-hmm.
I think finding gratitude is probably the thing that has changed me the most.
Mm.
I think appreciating life, and I think that appreciating what you have around you
Mm-hmm.
is probably that thing that changed me the most, because I look back towards my earlier years and I didn't care. I was so, I think being untreated, um, I just was living in that world of self destruction and a path of destruction. I just didn't care.
Yeah.
But I think that even for me, even in the last year, particularly after leaving the ranch, I have a whole new perspective on life. And it's amazing what the changes that has made for me. And this isn't and believe me, for anybody watching this, I mean, this isn't a promotion for Promises or the Ranch. This is real life stuff. That it was life changing. And I definitely see it in my daily life. The differences that were made. Um, so yeah, I think it's significant, the changes that happened to me even just in the last year. You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said I was living in a state where I just didn't care. And I would say, judging by the little bit that I've gotten to know you, you seem like a guy that really does care about life today and the meaningful relationships that he has. And I think that's a huge deal for sure.
Well, I think in hindsight, and then just to throw one more thing out there, I think in
Yeah.
hindsight, having the hindsight, it's taught me to be an empath. It's taught me to have empathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's taught me to have empathy for people, and it's taught me to want to give back. It's taught me to want to help others. And it's even being part of the Rooted program. It's taught me to want to, even be involved and want to help others around me,
Yeah,
particularly those that are suffering, that's important,
totally.
so yeah.
Yeah, we talk about gratitude being an action word, and it took me a long time to. I don't know why, but it took me a long time in recovery to, excuse me, really grasp what that meant to its fullest extent. And it's to some degree, I think I'm still learning that, but I I know for myself, from how you've described it as well. Um, it makes, I mean, it's a huge leg that we stand on, and no matter what we're in recovery from, living gratitude means living service.
Hmm.
Like when we're fully grateful, when we're
Yep.
actually living that, it comes out in service to others. And
Hmm.
I know that was not what I was doing before I found a life of recovery. So,
Yeah.
would you say to somebody else, another Jason who's in his 20s and hasn't found help yet, or just anybody in your similar shoes, that hasn't, that's wondering if maybe they also are bipolar? They sound like, hey, this guy sounds like me, um, and what would you say to them?
Oh, wow. Geez. It's almost like one of those things where, you kind of wish that you had the opportunity to go out and put your arm around the guy and just say, hey, take a look at what I did, and where I'm at now, and you can change your life. You can really make a huge impact on what you can do for your future now. Because it took me a long time to get where I am now, as far as the peace and serenity I have in my life now that I didn't have for a long time. And looking back, it was a very disruptive thing that I had to go through to finally get some peace, because it was a very difficult time that I lived through. And you could only hope that for someone who's suffering, that they can find peace in their heart and in their lives,
Yeah.
and that they would hear a message from someone to say, hey, you're not suffering alone, because I suffered alone for a long time. I didn't have a support system. I did it by myself for a long time. And, look to those around you, and be honest with yourself and ask for help, because those are four very important letters, that you can't be ashamed to ask, to use. I think sometimes we're too proud to use those letters,
Yeah.
to ask for help. Because it's definitely something that can be useful. So believe me, I wish I could go around and help everybody out there that would have been in my shoes in those years, because it would be very uh, it would be something that'd be very gratifying, to be able to go out there and share my service, to those guys
Well, I can tell you right
and
now
gals.
that your story today is going to, not just today, but because it'll be out there on, accessible for a number of people seeking recovery or already in recovery, and I know it's going to affect positive change in many people's lives. So we may never know how many, but I can guarantee you it's going to make a positive change. So I can't thank you enough for giving of your time today, and being vulnerable, and coming on here. It was really great to chat with you on this level, kind of in this dynamic, and hear your story again.
Well, thank you for having me, Patrick. It was really great to talk to you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, if anybody who is listening today or on replay is wondering about if you need help or if a loved one needs help, I would encourage you to take advantage of the resources we have scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We have a call center of admissions counselors that are available to talk to you, or you can access our website. But not only that, there is a plethora of information and helpful resources available to you. If you've never Googled it, you can get online and start doing that right now and find different, depending on what you have for resources in every town. There are therapists, there are 12-step meetings you can go to, Emotions Anonymous. Not trying to mix, promote any specific group, but there are a number of resources out there, and we would encourage you to do exactly what Jason said and use that 4-letter word, which is help, because it's the first step to changing your life. And with that, I'll just say I hope you all love and take care of each other and be kind.